Resuming debate, reprise de débat, the honourable member for Surrey North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As always, it's an honour to stand up in this House on behalf of my constituents from Surrey North to bring their concerns, Mr. Speaker. And today is particularly like to inform the House that Surrey is on a list of the 7 most intelligence communities in the world. So kudos to my city. We always knew that we were very intelligent, and we've finally made a list that is based community intelligence community forum that has put Surrey on that list. So I'm very proud of my people from Surrey, and I'm particularly proud of small businesses, Mr. Speaker, that as we know in this House, and we've heard often, that small businesses are the ones that drive this economy. They're the economic engines of this economy across from coast to coast. And Mr. Speaker, I've been in the House for over three and a half years now, and I haven't seen many initiatives that will actually address some of the concerns of small businesses, in order to ensure that we let them do what they do best, which is to create more jobs, invest in our communities. Yet the Conservatives, this bill here, Bill C-21, it's got a nice name to it, an act to control an administrative burden that regulations impose on businesses. Mr. Speaker, I like the title of the bill, if actually it reduced the actual regulations, that would be a welcome from this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is, Conservatives have time after time have failed to deliver for communities and businesses in the communities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you can be assured that the NDP, the MPs on this side of the House, will always look forward to days when we can reduce the red tape for our businesses. Mr. Speaker, I was in a business myself before I became a member of Parliament. Unfortunately, I had to sell because this involves quite a bit of work being a member of Parliament. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, the amount of red tape, the forms you had to fill out, it took a lot of time out of my productive time that I could have been investing more in my business, hiring more people. So, Mr. Speaker, we know the system is broken. We know there's a lot of red tape that the small businesses have to jump across. Mr. Speaker, big businesses, they have huge employees. They've got HR department, they've got PR department, they've got many different departments. In small businesses, the CEO is the one actually sweeps the floor at the end of the day, and CEO is the one that handles the paperwork. So there's a lot of extra burden on small businesses that could be eliminated. That could help actually prosper small businesses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know on the other hand, when we're looking at small businesses, reducing red tape, we need to ensure that the health and safety issues are also addressed, that we are not stripping away the very regulations that protect Canadians, whether it's health issues, whether it's safety issues, whether it's environmental issues. Those are fundamental things that we need to ensure that we don't strip those regulations, Mr. Speaker. I know, Mr. Speaker, there's a business group that meets regularly and I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, there's a small business group that meets in my community, and whenever I am in town in Surrey, I attend those meetings, and I'll tell you what those small businesses want, what those small businesses want from the federal government, Mr. Speaker. First of all, and I can tell you from my experience, the amount of exuberant money that we pay to the credit card companies is ridiculous, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, when you see transactions, you do a $10 transaction for a Visa card, and part of that money is taken away by the credit card company, Mr. Speaker, and we know those are high fees. We've been advocating on behalf of the businesses to this government to ensure that there's a fair system in place, to ensure that these credit card companies are not gouging these small businesses. But that hasn't been done, Mr. Speaker, because they caved under the Bay Street bullies, Mr. Speaker. They caved to them. They failed to protect consumers. They failed to protect Canadians. They have failed to protect the very small businesses that are economic engines of this country, Mr. Speaker. And talking about this small group that we've been meeting on a regular basis, Mr. Speaker, and they talk about, there's mental health issues in my community. Businesses, small businesses, want federal government actually to provide housing for mentally ill that are actually out on the street. And that's hurting some of the businesses. They're sleeping in front of the businesses, Mr. Speaker. These are the kinds of initiatives that small businesses want in our community. Small businesses that they can do whatever, Mr. Speaker, they can do what they know best. That is to grow, that's to create jobs. They need government assistance in order to ensure that they have the proper tools to be able to expand and to be able to hire more workers, Mr. Speaker. It's housing for mental health patients, Mr. Speaker. Those are the kind of initiatives that this government has failed to deliver for Canadians and for small businesses, Mr. Speaker. And I want to echo what my previous member was talking about when it comes to postal services, Mr. Speaker. If the government is truly interested in delivering for small businesses, they wouldn't be increasing the postal service fees that have been imposed, most notably on small businesses. I know, Mr. Speaker, most of my business that I attracted, the business that told people what I sold and what I did, was waived through Canada Post, and it was fairly efficient and costs were fairly competitive. It allowed me to get my message out to my customers, Mr. Speaker. And this government has, Mr. Speaker, actually raised that cost, and every little bit of cost that is being added to the small businesses, it hurts them, it takes them away from the very focus of creating jobs and offering their products to the communities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't have a lot of time. So, Mr. Speaker, anytime there's a reduction, and I can be clear about this, anytime there's a reduction in red tape, we on this side of the House will support that. However, Mr. Speaker, this plan by the government actually does not do that, Mr. Speaker. They talk about we are going to bring in one regulation, we're going to eliminate another regulation. Mr. Speaker, and we could be more efficient, Mr. Speaker, also, and this government has failed to do that. You look at, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking about we're talking about regulations, Mr. Speaker, this government has over time after time has failed to deliver for small businesses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we will always support the regulations that will protect Canadians, that will protect our health and safety concerns of Canadians. And we've seen this deregulation of some of the very industries in front of us. You look at the food and safety industry, Mr. Speaker, and we've seen the results of that in Alberta, where actually thousands of jobs were hurt because this government had failed to provide safety regulations and inspectors to ensure that the safety of the food was there. And we've seen the cuts in the railway, the cuts to the very regulations that provide for safety along the railway corridors. And, Mr. Speaker, we've seen that erosion, not only by this government, but we've seen that erosion come right from the Liberals. It hasn't stopped over with the Conservatives, and it keeps going on and on and on, Mr. Speaker. If Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, were really trying to help the very economic engines of this country, the small businesses, they would take initiatives. They would provide leadership rather than another example, Mr. Speaker, is the hiring credit, the $500 million hiring credit that we had supported. We wanted to have it go beyond in the 2014 budget. The Conservatives eliminated that, Mr. Speaker, and instead they put on another credit, which was $500 million, but it created only 800 jobs. So if you want to divide up $500 million by 800 jobs, according to my math, it's about $75,000 per job. That's how they spend the very hard-earned money of Canadian taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. With that, Mr. Speaker, I know my time is up. I will ask again the Conservative government to ensure that they take concrete efforts to help our small businesses rather than putting red tape in front of them, Mr. Speaker.